Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching us from. Welcome to today's episode of Sedat HR Digest. And once again, I'm excited, in fact, super excited to be hosting today's episode. In case today is the first time you are joining us or you've been joining us Sunday after Sunday, we want to say a very big thank you to those of you who join us every Sunday. But for those of you who today is the first time of joining us, Sedat HR Digest is a platform where we discuss relevant topics on people and organizational matters so we can be able to help our organizations and to build a better working environment for the people we work with and also to impact the bottom line. Sedat HR Digest is brought to us by Sedat Consult. You can contact Sedat Consult on 0244 629245 0244 for all your HR needs. In fact, everything HR Sedat Consult is there to help you. I'm super excited about today's topic because it's something that is really, really, really important. And we cannot downplay it when it comes to productivity and talking about organizational success. In an era where the landscape of the workplace is constantly evolving, cultivating an environment of psychological safety has become an indispensable cornerstone for fostering employee well-being, engagement, and ultimately fostering organizational success. And so today we are discussing building a culture of psychological safety, best practices, and strategies. And we have brought experts to help us digest this topic, and trust me, you will learn a lot. I am ready, and I know our resource persons are also ready for us. And so I'm going to go straight to introduce our resource persons. But before I do that, don't forget to drop your name and location in the comment section. We want to duly acknowledge you. And for those of you who keep watching us, once again, thank you. Thank you. We want you to like, share, and comment on all our social media handles. We are on YouTube, we are on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Again, during the discussion, if you want to seek clarification to anything that will be mentioned by any of our resource persons, or you have any question, or you want to contribute to what is being discussed, don't worry, feel free, drop your comment, your question, your clarification, everything you want to ask us, drop it at the comment section, and we would be glad to respond to you. Now, our resource persons are ready for us, and as usual, we are bringing you two experts to help us talk and discuss on the issue of psychological safety at the workplace. He's a regular speaker or a regular resource person on Sedat HR Digest, a friend to Sedat Consult, and we are super excited to have him once again this afternoon. Right, so he's a global learning and development, business, project management, and a general human resource management and development professional. He's very passionate when it comes to issues of psychological safety as well as mental health. Our guests this afternoon is Jeffrey Boham. Hi, Jeff. Good afternoon. Hello, Jeff.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I do see you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon. Yes.
It's afternoon here, so
Definitely afternoon here as well. It's 12:07. It should be 4:07 in Ghana.
right. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited anytime we see you. Okay, so our next guest is I don't want to say Superman, but I have heard him on other platforms talk about psychological safety, talk about mental health, psychology, uh, depression, handling depression for children, and all that. And trust me, he was amazing. And as usual on Said That HR Digest, we always bring you the best. And so this afternoon, once again, I'm excited to introduce to you our next guest. He is a clinical psychologist and a lecturer with the University of Ghana Medical School and Accra College of Medicine. He's a member of the Ghana and American Psychologists Association and the head of clinical division of the Ghana Psychologists Association. Now, as an employee awareness consultant, he has staged many corporate interventions, both in Ghana and abroad. He has served in the capacity of school counselor for institutions such as Ghana International School, Academic City College, Accra College of Medicine, and many others. He is passionate about mental health, and I can attest to that because I have witnessed him on other platforms. I guess when we are done, I'm going to tell him where I saw him. And he's involved in many media outreach. Pleasure is mine to welcome Dr. Seth Mawusi Asafo. Hi, Doc. You are welcome to Sedat HR Digest.
Hi, Patience. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all listeners. I'm also excited to be here.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you because we know today we're going to talk about a lot of things, and we are happy to have both you and Jeff on our episode for today. Right, before we go into the discussion, we have some viewers who have dropped in their names and location. I'd like to acknowledge them, and then we can start the conversation. So we have Michael Kisi. Michael is watching us from Cape Coast. Thank you, Michael. I think if we are awarding best participant and viewer, we would give it to Michael. He keeps watching us Sunday after Sunday. We are so excited anytime we see you. Yeah, then go Zachary. Thank you so much. Another person that watches us Sunday after Sunday. Abiba, thank you. Abiba is watching us from Kumasi. Thank you so much. We are so excited to see you. Emilia is watching us from Accra. Matilda, I can see you. Thank you. Matilda is watching us from Akosombo. Thank you. I know a lot of you are watching us. Please drop your name and your location so we can acknowledge you. And don't forget to like, share, and comment. Share the link. Share it with your friends. Share it with your fellow HR colleagues. Share it with your CEOs and your managing directors and all the leaders in your organization, because psychological safety is very, very important. And for me, it has a direct relationship to organizational success. So we want to go straight to our discussion. Okay, Elizabeth just joined us. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us. We can see you as and when the discussion progresses. If you join, we would acknowledge you. Now we want to go straight into the discussion for today. Like I said, we are looking at building a culture of psychological safety, best practices, and strategies. And so I want to go straight to Doc since he's a clinical psychologist. I can see Jeff nodding. Right. So, Doc, help us understand what psychological safety is all about and why is it important for organizations to create such an environment.
Well, thank you very much, Patience. I must start by saying that I think this is a very great thing that you are doing. By giving such information out, you make people's life easier, especially people like myself. Because within any institution that is psychologically safe, it will reduce the burden of psychological issues across board. Now, technically, when we talk about psychological safety, we look at it from a state of being or feeling where people feel that they are safe. And I guess we all understand the word safe. Now, the safety in this context is related specifically to their ability to express themselves without any fear of any kind of reprimand or being singled out or bullying. Now, that safety equally translates into making them be able to take initiatives and be
Mm,
able to take risk. Although some are calculated, they are able to take risk because they know that even when they take risk and things don't go well, they won't be punished for it. So that's what psychological safety is. Now, that's from a technical perspective. From a layman's perspective, I say psychological safety is what makes somebody says, I love my job.
mm.
It is what makes somebody says, I love my job. And then when you go on to ask them, what about your job do you love? You start to see all those variables within an institution or within the work environment that makes them feel a sense of safety or comfort. So that's what psychological safety is, in simple terms.
Right. Thank you so much. And I love the layman's definition you gave. That's I mean, where somebody can say that I love my job. And
Yes.
viewers, this is not something that only applies to our organization, even in our homes. I mean, these are issues that um I can say that it even starts from the home, because if you don't create that environment for your children to feel safe, to let you know or share their views, and even feel free to make mistakes and know that I will not be punished for doing something wrong, I guess it would even help, because once it starts there, it automatically gets into the organization. So don't only listen and learn for your companies, listen and learn for your homes as well. Jeff, you want to add up?
Well, again, thank you for the invitation. As usual, what I would say is that I also learned from what Doctor said, because I'm the layman here. I'm an HR person, but he's more the clinical psychologist. So he talked more about the technical aspects of it. What I know psychological safety to be, in my, I would say, experience, is really like exactly what he said, the freedom to be able to express oneself without any fear of retribution in any form. I did some projects with the National Council for Mental Wellbeing here in the United States. And it's something that I would say, even if we're putting a gauge on it in terms of how it measures within the context in this environment versus the context in Africa, what you find is that it's an issue in Africa than it is an issue here, because the legal systems actually support people being free to speak in the home. I mean, it goes beyond the workplace. You come to Ghana and you talk to my friends in Ghana, and they'll say, if I want to get married, I'd rather be married in the States because I feel free to talk about how I feel, even at home. You know, so it's all psychological safety.
Yeah.
You know, those simple things, like, if I quite remember back in Ghana, they'll say, "Oh yeah, but Fraba wouldn't mean answer." I mean, it's an
Mm,
assumption already. So you don't feel safe to share your opinion because you feel you're a child, and the system, the society is going to kind of suppress you in a way from expressing yourself. So I think it's all about having that safety and that freedom to really share and be, what you want to be, your full being, I would say. That's my understanding of it.
all right, thank you very much, Jeff. So let me come to Jeff. From what you just said, is it okay? And I'm sure Doc will add his view to what the question I'm going to ask. Is it okay to say that culture plays a very important role when it comes to psychological safety?
Yes, absolutely. I think the environment is typically powered by the culture. And culture, obviously, is a way of life of a group of people. So the things we do, but I would say culture can also be cultivated, culture can be
Yeah.
crafted. You come into certain environments, and and the ways that people hold you accountable, the ways and the legal system, the things that really gives you an opportunity, okay, to do certain things, those freedoms in the workplace and things. So I would say culture can definitely be created. So it's not something that is stuck on us. It's something that we can actually evolve if we put in the right
Mm.
mechanisms.
Right, right. Thank you. Doc, you want to add up?
I mean, I want to agree 100% with my senior brother Jeff. And what he says that, resonates the most with me is that the psychological safety does not operate in isolation. It
Mm,
operates within a certain ecosystem. So it will start on the micro level, which is our
mm,
individual families,
mm,
and then go on to the societal. Now, even if you look at the typical upbringing structure, within many African contexts, what you notice is consistently guidance driven. Do this, don't
mm,
do this, do this without any explanation. And of course, I remember that years ago we had people say things like, as a child, even if you drop a plate and broke it, you were punished for it. As if
mm,
you would get up and intentionally want to break a plate. So it didn't allow for children to be able to learn, because that's a new stimulus that they are manipulating. And of course, the more they have exposure, the better they understand. And then that's exactly what psychological safety is. And also, because he says it can be crafted, so it's something that can be taught. So that is a good thing. So you can't say it's an absolute state. It's either you have it or you don't have it. It's something that can be given out to anybody once there's a willingness to engage it and look at the benefits.
mm, mm. Thank you very much, Doc. Now, Doc, we want you to walk us through or educate us on some of the, practical strategies and best practices for building a culture of psychological safety within the organization.
Okay. Well, I first of all, I would say that we've already mentioned the fact that psychological safety can be taught. And from a psychological perspective, we say that human beings are consistently learning. Every single day, we learn something new. And as we learn, it becomes part of us. Now, some of the best ways for anybody to learn is by imitation. And I'm using the word imitation reservedly. If you work within an institution, if you're in a family, if you're in a relationship, and you have your partner, your parents, your children, if they do something and you learn from them, or if you do something and they learn from you, it's much more ingrained as compared to you telling them to do it. So the
Mm,
first thing I always talk about in psychological safety is, if you're at the head, you must you must be the person to consistently to show the behaviors. So, for example, if you want your staff, or you want your employees to be able to be able to express themselves when they have a challenge, then you should be able to do same. You should be able to take faults. You should be able to take risk. You should be able to, as it were, analyze all these things with them. Accept your fault as the very first thing, and as you do that, you get them to also feel comfortable to do so. I'll give you an example. We worked with an institution, and in this institution, the CEO was somebody they had looked at as not particularly involved. So we had a day of a getaway, and we went into a beach, and CEO was particularly interested. He was happy and engaging with everybody in all the activities. Guess what? They went back to work and there was a certain tension that had gone away. Why? Because CU was just part of the team. They felt that they were connected to him. And that's one of the things that
mm,
you must perform the behaviors that you want them to perform. If you make a mistake, you take it. If, for example, someone criticizes a stance you make, you accept it also. Now, the second thing for me has always been curiosity. So, in cultures where people believe that the boss knows it all, it is very difficult for anybody to be creative, because even when you think about being creative, you also fear that if the boss disapproves, then it's an indictment or some form of it's some form of stain on your particular professionalism or integrity or knowledge whatsoever. So in curiosity, the question you want to ask is, if somebody brings out any kind of point, any kind of innovation, instead of look at why it would fail, the most important thing to do is to ask, but why are you thinking about it this way? It helps you to better craft that approach to make the institution work in a much more better way. And then the third thing for me is, you must create amazing teamwork or group dynamics. the more people feel that they are part of the team, there's a collective energy within groups, okay, that consistently pushes people forward. So even if within a group, within an institution, the people feel as part of the group, if they are speaking, they can trust that it is something that most of their group members would share, and that gives them even more confidence. So these three are very key for me in an attempt to bring up psychological safety within any institution.
Right. Thank you very much, Doc. And so, if you want to have an environment that's psychologically safe for your team, do what you want them to do first. And I love that. And I love the example you gave about the CEO. I mean, if you do, your people will do same. And then make sure that instead of asking, be curious, instead of asking and thinking that somebody's idea or suggestion will fail, ask why they are thinking in that direction, and create a group dynamic. I mean, let me say group, let your bring positive energy in your groups, so that, I mean, people will feel free to talk. Jeff, you want to add up? Do you have
Well,
anything?
I'll say what doctor said. Obviously, from a clinical psychologist point of view, he's really talked about the technical details of it. I'm looking about it. I'm looking at it in terms of how it plays out in just the workplace and the way we lay people see it. In diversity, for most of the time, HR people, we forget that the things that we have to talk about have psychological, I would say, basis. So things like compassionate curiosity is something we talk about in diversity. But what Doc just talked about is clearly compassionate curiosity. You want people to be free enough to say, what is this about? How can I get to know it? How can I be a part of it? And things like that. I think, in addition to that, the one thing that I'd like to add would be deliberately creating a feedback rich environment. What do I mean here? Um, in our part of the world, I don't think we really understand the power of feedback, but feedback is actually a gift. Okay,
Mm,
I always say this. I know, patients, you've probably heard this before, but if you have a friend and the friend knows certain things that are holding you back and the friend never shares it with you, can you
mm,
still call that person a friend?
mm,
That
mm,
person
mm,
is
mm.
not your friend.
Yeah.
That person is a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that thing becomes more like competitive intelligence. Why do you hold certain things back and only tell me the things that really take me down? So, and you see, it's a mind shift thing. We should start seeing feedback as a gift and something that people are using to help us to elevate and build ourselves and to grow. And always it starts from the micro and becomes part of the macro. So what I mean here is, if we create that kind of environment where people are free to compassionately reach out and say, this is what I feel, this is how I feel, this is what I want to do, this XYZ. And if those people don't feel, like we went to the initial definition, if those people don't feel like they're going to be punished in any way for that, then we create that environment where people are free to psychologically and safely express themselves. And again, I like to compare cultures because that's what you see in this society that you
Mm,
don't see in our part of the world. Okay, in our part of the world, let me give you where I saw that initially when I came to school in America. In Ghana, you go to school and the teachers have ego. Unfortunately, they have ego and they feel like, okay, if you pass my exam, then you destroyed me, then you conquered me. But you come to the United States and the teacher is your friend. The teacher tries as much as possible to try to make you successful. So in that realm, you find that teachers create that environment here where basically what they're trying to do is want you to flourish and be the best of what you can be, versus
mm,
trying to hold you down and try to kind of, and I don't say every teacher does that in Ghana, don't get me wrong, but you find that it's that mindset that I'm the boss and the students can know more than me. But I've had situations in the classroom where people have said, this teacher just doesn't get it. I'm leaving the class. I'm getting out of it. because the teacher doesn't really understand what I'm saying. So we have to have that humility. We have to have that, I would say, openness to accept other people being themselves in our environment. And that's how we build a psychologically safe environment. It doesn't have to be only in the workplace. I think it has to be wherever we go.
Right. It doesn't only have to be in the workplace, it has to be wherever we go. We need to create that environment for people to be able to speak and give us feedback. And I love one thing Jeff said. He says feedback is a free gift. When you do something and somebody gives you feedback, the person doesn't hate you. It's just an opportunity for you to know what you are doing well and what you need to improve on. You don't shout. Even let's and you know, Jeff and Doc, I've noticed that sometimes our children gives us good feedback that we don't pay attention to. And and I believe that if we see feedback as a gift, it doesn't matter the quarters it is coming from, we will accept it, and that would help us. Thank you so much, Doc and Jeff. I'm enjoying this conversation already. Now let me go to Doc. In your opinion,
Sorry,
do you
patience. If I can interrupt for just a second,
please do?
one thing I have to add here, because I think when I said feedback is a gift, it doesn't always come as a gift. I want to clarify that because there are people who can weaponize feedback.
Sure.
People can weaponize feedback and use that to hold you back. So you want to create an environment where you let people know that you give feedback when you know the feedback is going to uplift the person and the feedback is good for that person. So I just wanted to clarify that feedback is
Sure,
not
thank
always a
you.
gift, but when you create an environment where people really support and trust and care for each other, then when they're giving feedback, they give feedback with the intention of supporting each other. So therefore, the feedback becomes a gift rather than a weaponized structure to hold people's minds back.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
In fact,
Welcome
Absolutely.
to that.
let me jump in right there again, and just on
All
the issue
right.
of feedback, is sometimes feedback does not only come from one person to another, but it can be a moment to stir up for the person to acknowledge something. And I'll tell you a story about somebody who, I mean, is like a line manager. They did some business and it didn't go well. So having to go and report to their superior was a very difficult process for them. Now they go and they make the report, and then the superior asks them, "What have you learned in this process?" And that was such an amazing thing, because the moment the superior said, "What have you learned in this process?" the superior took away the fear, but gave them an opportunity to recognize that you can make mistakes and learn from it. So sometimes you can guide people to give themselves feedback. And when messages come from yourself, it makes more
Mm,
meaning than when it comes from
mm,
another person.
mm,
So sometimes
mm,
it's important
mm,
to notice that dynamic also.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Doc, in your opinion, what role does trust play in creating and maintaining psychological safety, and how can trust be cultivated among um, team members?
Well, the very first thing about trust is you cannot trust in isolation. Okay, trust operates within an interaction. So you have to trust somebody, you have to trust a system, you have to trust something. Now what we know, especially within human behavior, is that when people trust another person, it means that they deem the person as reliable. Okay.
Mm,
So what trust does is, if I trust Jeff and Jeff tells me something, I'm more likely to accept what Jeff is saying than somebody I do not trust. So that's back to the issue of feedback, that I can have somebody give me feedback, but because I have a certain mindset about the person, I don't see them as reliable. It is difficult. So the distinction usually between trust and psychological safety is, whereas psychological safety breeds confidence within an organizational structure, trust looks at confidence between individuals in a group.
mm,
So
mm,
if you have the backing of one team member or two team members, and you feel that it's enough to be able to express yourself, that's a good thing. Now, you need trust to believe that the principles that have been set. So, in principle, we have many institutions in Ghana that have all these HR policies that outline psychological safety and all those things. But half the time, it is just there. It doesn't actually work. And I'll give you an example. So I work as an employee consultant professional for some institutions, and when staff come to me because they are struggling with some stress or burnout, they keep telling you issues like, well, the organizational structure says, or the organization has rules that says we close at 5. Unfortunately, if you leave the office at 5, you are looked at as not serious, not dedicated, not, and so you are singled out and bullied in a certain way. Okay. Now, those that stay till the time where their bosses leave and they leave are seen as dedicated. Now,
Mm,
that becomes an issue of trust. So the rules are there, but do I trust it to work? And the trust is what directly pushes people to feel safe within their institution.
mm, that's insightful. Jeff, you want to add up?
Well, I generally say that in life, anything that is true, I have four pillars that I like to look at. And obviously, the expert is talking about trust here. I would say in anything that I buy into, I think there has to be mutual trust. Okay, we have to trust each other. There has to be mutual respect. There has to be mutual understanding and a mutual willingness to work together through execution. So
Mm,
TRUE, trust, respect, understanding, execution. Okay. I see trust as Doc said, I see trust as that thing where you know that that person's word can be as trusted as your own word. Okay. So I don't see psychological safety really existing in any environment where there's no trust. If I feel like the person B is going to do something to me and I'm person A, if I don't trust person B, I don't trust person B's response, then I cannot easily bring in the stimulus, whatever I want to say, mainly because I think or I don't know the response or the reaction that person B is going to take. But if I can gauge and understand that that person is going to really respect and empathize with what I am saying and really see things from my point of view as well, then I feel that trust. So trust is something that can be defined in so many different ways, but at the end of the day, I think it's a dynamic that exists between and amongst people in an environment where person A, person B, person C, they just have to trust it there. You can find yourself in an environment where they can say it's a trust environment, but two or three people might not trust the other people in the group.
mm.
So the trust levels within one group may be more than the trust levels within other groups. So it's something that is very fluid and very interesting to digest. But overall, I think what the role of HR should be would be to continuously keep growing that trust. And it starts with modeling the way by seniors, modeling the way by the leaders. I mean, if you want an environment, when people come through orientation, if you tell people that we show up to work at 8 o'clock, you, the manager, should be there by 7 o'clock, greeting
Mm.
people, welcome to work, welcome to work. So if they see you at work at 7 o'clock every day, then they know that what you said 10 years ago is true. You did it every day. And that is what we, and trust even, it requires some follow through sometimes. So it takes a lot to really build an environment of trust. It's very important that we pay attention to that. And
It
again,
takes a
I'm not
lot.
a technical expert here, but from the way I see it, from the layman's point of view, those are the things that I like to see exist in an environment for me to feel safe and trust that environment.
Sure, we are enjoying the blend from the technical view and then the HR point of view. So we are enjoying it. We are cool with it. Now, Jeff, what or how can leaders and managers, effectively promote and model psychological safety in their team? And you said something that goes along that line. That's why I'm asking you this question. Um, how can they model and promote psychological safety within their environment or among their team members?
Well, and this would be my advice to a lot of leaders. What I think is that most leaders, maybe because of the expertise and because of their experience, because of their knowledge, they tend to think that they should be the ones pouring in all the time, that they have to lead all the time. But you see, a leader has, to me, in my opinion, a leader has to lead from all angles. There are times when you lead from the front. There are times when you step back and believe that other people in the group are better skilled technically than you. There are times when you have to lead from the side. I mean, I remember there was a point where I was a manager, okay? And one of the things that I did was I rotated my team leadership, which means for every week we had a different person on the team take on the team meeting, lead the team meeting. Why did I do that? I did that to kind of build confidence in the people. I did that for everybody to believe that they were valued, that their opinions mattered. And everybody had the freedom to select and build the structure of the way they were going to run their day. And I gave them that freedom. Another thing is sometimes when we have during our one-on-one meetings, okay, with our subordinates, it's important that we set the expectations right up front and let them know that it is their day and not ours. During my bi-weekly meetings with my team, you know what I do? I tell them that's not my meeting. That's their meeting for their growth. So come and tell me what I can do to serve you as your leader. And you should see how people just come emboldened and empowered because they're like, okay, I want to take this course, and what do you think about it? I want to. So it's not always me calling the shots. It's never me calling the shots. It's more of being your day. So that's number one. Number two, as a leader, I think it's also important that we let people know that we respect everybody, that we will bring everybody in, and that nobody should be left behind. And when it comes to our rewards and recognitions, okay, we want to reward the people who actually show that teamwork, the people who show that confidence and courage to come out and support the team. So I think there's so many things. I think we have to look at the values, and based on those values, we create guiding principles, like I would say policies and procedures that people need to embrace on a daily basis that truly reflect the culture that we're building. So I think it's important for leaders to build a culture that really creates that open space and free environment for people to be themselves, I would say.
Right. It's important for leaders to create and build an open space environment so people can express and give their views. Doc, what do you have to add on?
I mean, still on the issue of modeling, which is if you do it, I'll do it. Is leaders being able to show their weaknesses or vulnerabilities equally. Now, people have a quick affinity to you if they believe that they can relate to you, and that's psychologically based. Um, Working as a school counselor, one thing that I've always done that's worked perfectly is when I get kids come to talk about me, first of all, they believe in this dynamic of you're old, so you
Yeah.
don't understand what goes on around, and then they come in and I take an interest. So even if I don't know about it, the next time you come, I'm like, oh, I was also playing that game you talked about. You did? And the moment you've done that, you have come into a certain zone with them. Now, it's the same about sharing your experiences where I tell them, oh, when I was at your age, I went through a similar thing. And they're like, really? And that's what leaders should do. They should guard against people picking up the sense that they have to be perfect because really there's nothing like perfect. We're all too dynamic, we have too many viewpoints, we come from too many different backgrounds for anything to be perfect. And I learned that practically when I had written a certain article, and it took me almost a year to write the article because I wanted it to come out perfect. Okay, so I submitted to the journal, and then it came back with so many, you know and I'm
After
like,
after 12 months of
after
work.
12 months, I said, what's going on? Then I realized the perspective they were giving me was very
Mm,
different from my perspective. And so,
mm,
whenever you think about perfectionism, we say that perfectionism is a trait that only leads people to find or get into a lot of stress, and it wears you out. So,
mm,
leaders must be able to share what they learned, the challenges they went through, the mistakes they made, so that people now realize that, oh, the journey requires that you make certain mistakes. It's not smooth sailing like many people think it. I mean, if you look at how they describe a lot of superstar CEOs, as I would say, it almost seems like they have no blemish. They never made a
mm,
mistake. But if
mm,
you read their books, their autobiographies, you'll learn that they made so many mistakes. What they
mm,
did actually was they learned from those mistakes. And learning from your failures are the best kinds of learning because it becomes part of you. So I think leaders must be able to consistently talk about not just the things that make them awesome, but the things that equally took away from them for which they have gained presently.
Thank you very much, Doc and Jeff. We are enjoying this discussion. We will go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. Like I said, please feel free drop in your questions. If you want to seek clarification to anything that has been said, feel free to drop it in the comment section. You want to contribute to what is being discussed, feel free. Remember, we are talking about psychological safety, so feel free to let us know what you also think about the subject we are discussing. And so please don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly. Right, welcome back from the break. This is Sadat HR Digest, and we have been talking or we are discussing building a culture of psychological safety, best practices, and strategies. And my guests in the studio today, I have Dr. Seth Mawusi Asafo, and then Jeffrey Boham. And Jeffrey is a regular face on Sadat HR Digest, and we are having, a very interesting discussion here. But I want to remind you, or I want to inform you that in October, the biggest HR conference is about to happen. And so Sadat Consult is organizing HR conference coming October. It's a free event. You don't have to pay anything. So register all your HR teams, call your HR friends, call your bosses, your HR directors. Let them register and let them be part of this event. Is going to be awesome. We are going to learn, we are going to unlearn, and we are going to relearn. It will be a platform for us to network. And trust me, our speakers, you saw the adverts. They are ready for us. It's a free event. And so if you are an organization out there, or you want your company to sponsor us, please get in touch with us. We will drop the contact number in the comment box. Pick it, call us, let's have a conversation. Feel free to sponsor us. It's a free event. We are ready to share knowledge. We are ready to learn from each other, and we are ready to learn. Remember, if you're an HR person and you live in isolation, you will crash before your time. And so feel free, join this conference. Let's learn, relearn, and unlearn. It's the biggest HR conference coming up in October. I will be there and I want to see you there. Let's meet there and let's learn together. Again, if you want to sponsor us, please feel free to get in touch with us. We'll share the contact number, and then we'll also share the link for registration on all our platforms so that you can register. We want to prepare very well for you. When you register, we will let you know the venue and all the other things that you need to know before October 2023. We would also let you know the exact date in October when we are done with the discussions we are having, right? So we are, like I said, we are discussing building a culture of psychological safety, best practices, and strategies. Now I want to ask Doc, how can organizations strike a balance between fostering a psychological safety and maintaining accountability and high performance standards?
Oh, this is a very good question, and I think it's good for us to understand that psychological safety does not mean that there's no accountability. It doesn't mean that there's no conflict. It doesn't mean that there are no disagreements. In fact, in psychologically safe environments, you tend to have more conflicts because you have more people who share varied opinions. So it is not, as people may think that, oh, psychological safety means that everything is nice and pleasant. No, that's not what it is. Accountability is a structure that allows for an institution to, look at its targets to know that they are achieving or not. If you look at psychological safety, it is just a tool that gets people to get to that level. So it's not a thing about balancing, it's a thing of understanding that psychological safety is good, but it has a number of myths. People think that when you're in a psychological safe environment, then there are no fires, everything is pleasant all the time. No, that's not the reality. Accountability you can't do away with, but understanding what psychological safety isn't, I guess, is what is important for us to understand. And the balance naturally comes if the work environment is psychologically safe. Now let me put it in a neuroscience perspective. You see, whenever we talk about safe, when you are safe, you are comfortable, and the brain allows the frontal part of your brain, we call the prefrontal cortex. That's what works when you are in a place where you are safe. Okay, so that's a fact you have to understand. Now, when you are under stress, your brain explains stress as danger. And sometimes the stress can come from simple things like just seeing the office building and you go like, "Oh my god, another day." The brain explains it as danger. Now, when you go into a state of danger, your prefrontal cortex, which is necessary for rational thinking, making analysis, executive function, it becomes impaired. It goes to bed. Okay, and there's a little organ or a little structure in the brain we call the amygdala. It's primed for fear or to help us to stay safe. Okay, it takes over. Now, the truth about the amygdala is the amygdala makes you make a lot of impulsive decisions, or it makes you take impulsive action. So, for instance, when you're walking down, let's say you're walking down a park, something walks on your leg and then you jump back. Now, you jump back without looking at it, and you might think it's a snake when it's actually just your shoelace. Your amygdala does not have that time or that complexity to be able to analyze all the details. It just makes you react to stay safe. So, whenever you go into an environment that is unsafe, you have your amygdala working more. But in terms of productivity and being able to be part of a teammate, you need your prefrontal cortex to work better. So, if you look at it from a neuroscience perspective, feeling unsafe means making more errors. It means that you are going to be less productive. And that's something that I think is important for us to know. So, if you create a safe environment, you actually keep people in a state where their brain is not explaining any danger. It is just seeing it that even when dangers come, the brain says, ah, no, these ones are tolerable. So it doesn't have to react in excess.
Right. Thank you very much, Doc. Jeff.
Hello?
Yeah, Jeff, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So what I understand, and I quite let me go back to what an older person, somebody who's been in this country for a long, the United States for a long time. When I came to America the first time, the first week, you know what he said to me? He said the best way to enjoy life in America, okay, number one, obey their laws and pay your taxes. And besides that, everything else is going to be perfect for you. So the key thing is, I mean, we're talking about accountability versus psychological safety and everything. The key point is the fact that we are psychologically safe and free doesn't mean we have to make wrong choices. So I think it's important that we set the conditions right up front. We have to clarify what the expectations are. If you get 70% out of 90%, you're going to fail. You need to get 90% to be able to pass. So no matter how you enjoy the environment, no matter how many cakes you enjoy, no matter how many drinks you enjoy, make sure you do whatever it takes to get a 90%. So it's to me, it's more all about articulating what accountability truly is, what the measures of accountability are, and getting people to just play anyhow they want to play as long as it's within the rules. However, ensuring that the basic standards are met to hold them accountable. That's how I look at it. So I don't think that there's too much of a challenge balancing it. In fact, there's some things that a lot of times people push for, like work-life balance. I call it work-life choices. You have every right to go walk away from the workplace if they're asking you to work too much. If they're saying they expect you to work 50 hours a week instead of 40, you can choose to apply somewhere that really gets you to work 20 hours a week, but you're gonna get paid less. But people say, well, I need work-life balance. I need to work only 30 hours, but I need to make this amount of money. No, the people working 80 hours a week are the people that are earning more money. If you want to work 20 hours a week, they're going to pay you less. So it's your choice. I mean, I think it's important when it comes to accountability. It's important for us as individuals to train our minds to take responsibility for what we do and the actions and consequences we get from what we do. So when it comes to accountability versus psychological safety, I don't think HR really has to create policies or draw the line. When it comes to basically setting expectations, it can be the same anyway.
Mm,
Being psychologically safe doesn't mean you don't have to be punished when you go
mm,
wrong. But just
Yeah.
making sure you explain what the rules are to people. The
mm,
rules of play, just make it clear to people from the beginning. And if they flout the rules, the police officer is going to say, stop, you were speeding. You see
mm.
the road sign says it's 40 miles an hour, and you're doing 70 miles, and he said, he beat me, he didn't. No, he didn't beat you. You did pass the 40 hours, the 40
Yeah.
miles. You knew it. You saw the road sign say 40 miles per hour, maximum speed, but you went past it. So I think we have to start explaining to people, start taking responsibility and accountability for your own lives. And once you start saying, take doing that, you realize that the laws are just mere guideposts. They are not there to really destroy you. They are there to make sure that the organization makes money so that you can get your bonuses. We have to start switching our mindset and thinking that way.
Right. Thank you very much, Jeff. The fact that we are saying that we are creating a safe environment for you to feel free and air your views doesn't mean that you will not be held accountable. And so please have this at the back of your mind and not say psychological safety and so there's no need. No, when you do it the wrong way, we'll hold you accountable. All right. Now, Doc, are there specific trainings or programs that can help employees and leaders to develop their skill related to psychological safety?
Oh, there are dozens of them. I think this is actually a question for Jeff. But I will tell you from our point of view. Now, if you look at the concepts that are embedded within psychological safety, good leadership is one. Therefore, leadership training is amazing. Okay. Emotional intelligence is another thing that
Mm,
follows. So emotional intelligence training is awesome. Learning to deal with stress is an amazing tool. Learning to build your self-worth, so self-esteem training is also another amazing tool. So if you bring all these things together, it will definitely make the process of creating psychological safety much easier within an institution. Because if you're trying to drive psychological safety and your leader cannot relate or does not understand the principles of being a good leader,
Mm,
unfortunately it will fail. Now when I look at leadership, and even when I look at psychological safety, one thing I always say is that the people within the institution that do a lot of the innovation, okay, are the people who are in the base, and the
mm,
leader does the support. They support the innovations. That's exceptionally how I look at it. So if, for example, the leader doesn't understand that, and the leader believes that they do the innovation and they do the supporting, there is an incongruence that's been built in that middle,
mm.
which might affect psychological safety, which means that if somebody were to share their opinion about an idea, it might be, pushed aside very quickly. So if you look at these constructs of managing stress, looking at your own self esteem or self worth or self confidence and competence, if you look at emotional intelligence and you look at leadership training, all these would come together, obviously, to enhance psychological safety.
Right. Thank you very much, Doc. So we are looking at leadership training. We are looking at emotional intelligence training. Jeff, you want to add up the
Well, Doc
trainings?
said it
Doc,
all.
this is a question for you. So
Yeah,
I'm,
interestingly,
I'm giving you a question.
Doc said it was a question for me, but he ended up answering it more perfectly than I probably would. And I'll explain why. Because I have never seen any specific workshop or training dedicated to psychological safety. It's
Mm,
like in economics. Okay, we talk about the invisible hand. Okay, have you seen any training in the invisible hand before? You know, but demand and supply revolves around the invisible hand. It's that fluid thing that really lies in almost everything you do. I think almost every leadership program should have a talk or two about psychological safety. I think every management meeting, just like emotional intelligence, just like being inclusive, okay, there can be a few people that can say, oh, I don't think there's a checklist for creating inclusivity in wherever you do, in whatever you do. You find yourself in a position where you might have to be inclusive in one
mm,
way or the other. My key point is when it comes to psychological safety, it is mentioned. I mean, go on the internet, it is mentioned in almost every training, almost every leadership training. So it's like the invisible hand, but you
mm,
definitely want to include some talk about it. Okay, just like there's something we call carefrontation. It's a term. Confront people because you care about them. I say that to almost everybody. I'm telling you this because I want the organization to grow. I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm giving you this feedback painfully because that's what you can do for the organization to make the 1 billion that we're looking for, so that you can get your $100,000 bonus. What about that? So I think what I would say is I personally haven't seen any specific training dedicated to psychological safety. I've seen certain sections of trainings where people have come to talk about the topic of psychological safety. I've seen psychological safety brought into several different training programs, but not necessarily labeled psychological safety. Like Doc said, emotional intelligence, okay, like empathy training.
Yes.
You can hear empathy training, but empathy training will talk specifically about psychological safety, because when people don't feel that trust, when they don't feel that openness and that lack of unfortunate retribution, what happens is they hold back and they don't respond and react the way you want them to. So like Doc said, he mentioned me, but the truth is he answered it.
Right, so let's go to our comment box. We have some few things there. We want to read it out. And right, so I think talking about the some of the trainings that people can undertake so they can enhance their skills when it comes to psychological safety. In the comment box, I see Michael type psychology. Right, thank you, Michael. Now we have a question from Frank. So Franca Hinkra says, thank you very much, Doc and Jeff, for your insightful contributions on this interesting topic. I'm really learning here. I'm learning here as well, my Frank. Now he says, I've have had instances where psychological health and safety seemed to be same as psychological safety. Can you please share a light if there are differences or similarities?
Okay. Okay.
Dog.
Okay. So you see, essentially, I think the key distinguishing feature here is that psychological safety is a very specific construct. Okay, that looks at the ability to be able to take risk and not feel that you'll be punished for it, etc. If you look at the larger term, which is psychological health and safety, it takes a very preventive approach and it falls under occupational health and safety, which is limiting and minimizing hazards within the work environment. Okay. Now, these extend both into physical and psychological hazards. So, for example, stress is a psychological hazard, and that could encompass many different things apart from the fact that it's an interpersonal thing. So, I always say that psychological safety is embedded within psychological health and safety, which is also embedded within occupational health and safety. I hope Frank gets the distinction I'm trying to make.
Thank you very much, Doc. I hope Frank, you are clear with the explanation Doc has given. Now, all too soon, our time is up, but we'll just look at just two things, and then we would close today's or bring today's episode to an end. Now, Doc, looking forward, what do you see as the future trends or evolving practices in building and sustaining psychological safety in the workplace?
Well, for me, I am somebody who always tackles every problem from the base. So I say we deal with it from not just in the organization, but within the society in which we live, and that starts from our parenting style and the way
Mm,
that we bring up our children. That is the way I see psychological safety to become something that makes sense. Look, I've worked in many institutions, stage many interventions, and essentially there is a fear which has been so conditioned and so
mm,
ingrained that there is no amount of assurance or reassurance or confidence that you put out that makes sense to the person because they have been conscientized in that way. Now we've had many experiments that compares the typical African child. I'm using typical reservedly, okay, with the typical European or American child. And you notice one thing. They build or foster autonomy within a child. So when the child is exploring boundaries, they only set the boundary, but they are not policing the child and saying, no, not this, not this. It's not something that they've done. And I remember one of those days where I went to a playground and I've compared playground Ghana, playground outside the country. So in playground in Ghana, parents are following their children. No, don't do this. Their sand is here. Their germs are here. On the other hand, they allow the children free range and they are interacting with other
mm,
child. They are bumping themselves, they are crying. And when there's something risky, they'll take an interest and realize, oh, it's just a little scratch. And then I guess in their mind, all they're saying is it's a scratch, it's part of the process of living. Now, in doing these things, you are fostering in the child a sense of autonomy, a sense of
mm.
confidence that allows them to be able to express. And I think we are doing fairly well because now, with most of our children, when you tell them something, they ask you why.
Yeah.
you know, which means that we're doing well. Now, our ability to explain to them why, for it to make sense, is also a sense of psychological safety that you are creating, rather than because I say so, or how dare you question mom or dad about it. So, for me, I think we have to look at it from the foundational level and start from there. In institutions as well, like I said, I think all these training models of leadership training, emotional intelligence may help people to do better. But if we really want it to become a sit still concept, we have to tackle it from the foundational aspects.
We have to tackle it from the foundation. Let me come to Jeff, and then we would take their final words and bring the episode to an end. I wish we had more time to talk more about psychological safety. Now, Jeff, how can organizations sustain a culture of psychological safety over the long term, especially during times of changes or uncertainty? How can they sustain psychological safety for a long time?
Well, I would say that it's important for organizations. Now we're not talking individual here, we're talking organizations. It's important for organizations to institutionalize their rewards and recognition processes. Okay. What I
Mm.
mean here is we said come in at 8 o'clock. We said whoever comes in at 8:05 is late, so we're gonna be asked to go. If you come in at 8:05, we politely say you broke the rules, please go home. So we have to just also be trustful in doing what we said we're going to do. What I
Mm.
Hello?
Yes, we are listening to you.
Okay, I think I had somebody speak.
No, I'm just it was just a comment in affirmation to what you are saying.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you. I always this something that I always joke about. But I'll say a person in a different part of the world who will not go to work when it rains, okay, will go to work in America when it snows. You know why? Because you are guaranteed to be fired. If you don't go to work, you know you are going to go home. And so that in and of itself has built that culture where people say, no, I know it's 10 inches of snow, but I know my boss is going to fire me. So whatever it takes, I can't drive today. I have to go through Uber. I have to get Uber. So the simple thing is institutionalizing our practices in such a way that we let people know what we would accept and what we wouldn't accept, even though we create that environment where they are safe and they do everything, we have to stick with our institutionalized practices. And I think that would help to sustain it. And if I can go back quickly on the previous topic that Doctor actually covered so well, I have an issue. I have something that I talk about that, and the whole idea of charity beginning at home. I think that the change, the evolution, the new culture of psychological safety, okay, should start from the home. And sorry that I'm going back to that previous because I was thinking what I would say when it comes to that, and I'll tell you this. I've had this experience with a lot of African parents here. I don't whip my daughter. I don't do anything like that. I get her to sit with me and have a conversation and say, tell me what you were thinking. Why did you do things this way? Okay. Guess what comes? And they say, oh, well, my friends would generally be like, well, you're a father. You have to be the father. You have to let it. I'm like, no, you are a bully. Okay. When somebody does that to you, when somebody does that to your child in school, you're going to call the person a bully. When somebody really whips your child in school, you say the person is a bully, but you're doing it at home. Why can't you have a conversation with that child? When I set rules, when I tell my daughter, when I tell her, look, let's all wash our plates when we finish eating. When I don't wash my plate, she comes to me and says, Daddy, why did you do that? I'm like, what did I do? Why did you not wash your plate? So, like Doc said, it's building that confidence, that autonomy, okay, that belief in them. This we've lived with some cultural practices that helped us up to a certain point, but I think the world has evolved to a new place where we have to really start seeing parenting as a relationship and not as a bullying process. Okay. And what I would say is the good thing is I'm actually seeing a lot of changes. When I visit Ghana now, I see Ghanaian kids that talk back to their parents, but they talk back respectfully. Now, I told my daughter, we're going to clean my place this morning. She told me that I'm dealing with a headache. Unfortunately, I can't do it. Is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. That's why if you're not feeling well, that's okay. I will do it myself. But some parents will say, "No, stop it. Go, go. I called you. I'm your fair. I'm your dad. Go and do it." Something of that sort. But when dad is feeling sick, that wants to be in bed and ask the child to do something. So I just had to chime in on that. Sorry that I went back to the previous topic, but that's something that I'm very passionate about, especially when he went to the primal source, which is the family. I think it's very important for us to start making that shift. But I think it's happening already. I'm seeing that
It
already.
is.
It's happening already. So that's a good step forward.
Right. Thank you very much, Jeff. So let me go to the comment session and then I'll come to you for your final words. So Matilda says that but then if we say go home because you are late without listening why, are we ensuring the freedom of expression? There may be a good reason for the lateness. Absolutely. Absolutely. And then Paul says wash hands. I don't know what Paul is trying to say. Paul, if you can come back, I will be very happy. But I'm sure Matilda was contributing or was trying to um, her comment is in relation to a comment Jeff made that if you come late, if we say we are starting work at 8 and you come 8:05, we're going to tell you to go home. And I'm sure that is what she's commenting too. Um, Right. So we want to take final words from our guest, and in giving us their final words, I would like each of them to give an advice to organization or recommendation to organizations that are just starting their journey to creating a culture of psychological safety. And so I'll start first with Jeff and then Doc will end it for us. So Jeff, we are listening.
Okay, thank you very much. But before I even give my final words, I think I want to touch on what Matilda said because I know she's expecting a response. She said, "But then if we go home because we were late without listening why, are we ensuring the freedom of expression?" I'll tell you something, Matilda. What I would do is if I know that I'm going to be late by 5 minutes before work, I call my leaders and say, "Hey, leaders, I'm caught in traffic. Not going to be at work at 8 o'clock. The machines are going to start at 8, but because I'm not going to be at work at 8, can you please get somebody to fill in for me?" When you do that, you show a sense of responsibility, and that leader will not fire you. I mean, people are not crazy in this country. Just tell them why. You can't pay your taxes. Just tell them, "I had this experience. I was in the hospital all year, so I could not pay my." They will listen to you. But the point is, you don't just show up late and go give them an excuse. So that's the one thing there. Now, when it comes to my final advice, I think that I left Ghana in the year 2000 or so. I think where we were versus where we are now, in terms of almost every department of life, I think we're moving forward, and that is perfectly good. What I'm going to say is that we just have to accelerate a little more because now we have the internet, we have all these tools, we have doc, we have people with all this experience in this country, and I really have to commend Sedat Consult as well. This is a free session, and you're putting this out for almost everybody to listen. So the truth is that we all have the opportunity. We have YouTube, we have places where just we have to drum it in. We have to get people to understand that these things are important, not just because they're good and they help to build a healthy environment, but those in workplace, I would say research will tell you that productivity increases and the bottom dollar also increases. So creating a psychologically safe environment really impacts the bottom line. It's very important as organizations to look into that. It's very important for the people themselves, the employees themselves, to truly understand that, look, psychological safety is a good thing, but we don't have to take advantage of it. Okay, that would be my words to folks back home. I would say the good thing is we are not even as a continent, we are not even starting afresh. We have templates. We have the Western world. The Western world has their own problems as well. but we have templates. We have the way people have done it in certain countries, and they've seen the results and how these things have worked for the workplaces. It's just simple. Let's just take from their templates and emulate, and then we can accelerate the rate at which we're building things. But you have folks like Doc in Ghana having to give lectures upon lectures upon lectures, and people are not listening. People listen to these things, and then they go back and they say, "Oh, I just heard what he said. Let me just go." You know what I
And
mean?
again, if you are interested in Doc coming to your organization to have a training session or a talk with the employees, and or you can get in touch with Sedat Consults. We would do the arrangement and have him get in touch with you and the organization. Jeff is also there as well. So please feel free, get in touch with us. We will link you to them. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much, Jeff. Well said. Matilda said, Jeff perfectly said. Thank you, Matilda. Now, Doc, your final word.
In my final words, I like to draw on the proverb, two heads are better than one, which is something we use a lot in the African context. And I'm saying this on the basis of the fact that if you look at psychological safety, the ability to allow other people to express means fresh ideas, new ideas. Even within ideas that we see a lot of problems, there can be lights because trying to solve that problem might actually be an innovation. And my final thing, ask for help. In the
Mm,
21st century, you can't have it all. But if you do notice that things aren't going on well, your turnover is not the best. Of course, if you look at the statistics for what psychological safety can do, for many institutions globally, it's been able to reduce presenteeism, which is coming to work and not doing anything, but you are just at work because you're trying to get your paycheck. It's been able to decrease it by almost 25% across the world. Absenteeism, the same way. And also, it has also been able to increase productivity by almost 12%. Now, this is just within the first 3 months, and it has an accumulative effect. So ask for help. There are many people out there who have who spend their life doing these kinds of interventions who can obviously help you to structure and streamline things to ensure that your employees' well-being is the key construct. And once their well-being is being adequately taken care of, productivity becomes a bonus for you and it just flows that way. Thank you.
right. Ask for help. And that is why I said that consult is here. If you need help, please get in touch with us. We would help you out. We will get you the right people to help you. Thank you very much for joining us in today's episode. We discussed building a culture of psychological safety strategies and best practices. And I hope you have learned a lot. I have learned a lot over here, and I know you have to. Please share the link. When we are done, we will send the link to today's discussion with you. Continue listening, share with your friends and colleagues who were not able to join us live today. Let them also listen to it. Don't forget to like, share, and comment on all our social media platform. We are on YouTube, we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn. And I want you to know that whatever we are learning here, it shouldn't stay with you alone. Get others involved. Remember, it's a platform where we are learning, unlearning, and relearning. Matilda says, God bless you. God bless you too, Matilda. And we are super excited to all of you for joining us for today. We will meet again next week with another interesting topic, and you wouldn't want to miss that. Thank you so much and have a good week. We will see you next week, Sunday, same time for another interesting topic.